We join with other Unitarians in the tradition of striking the gong 3 times, once in memory for all of those who have gone before us, and once in honor of those who are here now, and once for the future. So, good morning. It's nice to see you all on this Sunday, July 16th. I am Laline Fifield, your service leader for today. Welcome to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist congregation. This is a place where you can be yourself, but not by yourself. We especially welcome those who are here for the first time, and those of you who have been recently and returned again. Know that whomever you are, whoever you love, however you describe yourself or name the holy, you are welcome here. And we're glad that you're with us today. And we hope that you'll stay after the service for coffee and tea and conversation so that we can get to know you better. Our UU congregation acknowledges the people who came before us on this land called the Umpqua. Their name graces our congregation and the river that flows through. And for thousands of years, they have lived here, loving this land in harmony. The Umpqua Trail still gives us so many opportunities to explore that land. And the Umpqua tribe still keeps giving gifts of action and wisdom. We make this land acknowledgement in recognition of the Umpqua and in beginning atonement for harm done, part of the path towards healing. We have some announcements. They're in your order of service. The one I'd like to draw your attention to, in particular, is the conversation happening in about 8 or 9 days with Reverend Dennis. We want to rebuild, reactivate, improve many of our faith-based activities, which specifically include children's religious services and also what we've called for many years AEO, Adult Opportunities for Education. And so we're going to be meeting and looking at all that and seeing how to move forward in those areas and looking for volunteers who might be interested in participating. If you're relatively new to us, and for those listening from home, we hope you'll come in and participate in the conversations so that we really do have the opinions of many. And for those of you watching us later because you've gone fishing or camping this weekend, we also hope that you'll come in and join us for that conversation on Tuesday with Reverend Dennis. I'd like to thank Jake Tranter for his media skills. We couldn't do it without him, and much appreciation goes to our staff and our greeter for today, John Asham. The only other announcement is I have some please do not touch photos back there on the table that were taken of the Pride Festival. So those of you who were unable to attend, you might want to take a look at all that was going on. And for those of you who were there, I'm quite sure you'll find pictures of yourself. If you see a picture that you really like, you have my permission to pick up that pencil and just put your initials very lightly on the back, and we'll try to get some prints for you, but limit that if you can. Next is a time in our service when we, out of our compassion for those who are less fortunate and in need of food or perhaps money and may have ill health, we make that collection of food and money for the fish pantry. So if I could get somebody to help distribute a couple baskets around, and your collections of any food you brought or money would be greatly appreciated and well put to use. The Fish Food Project is a project of several Roseburg churches working together, and we are one that have supported them for a long, long time and served on their board and been regular volunteers. Know that your gifts will be most appreciated by others. And at this time, our live streaming audience is joining us, which reminds me they missed that last little piece, but they'll hear it again. We have words today for lighting our chalice. We begin each service by lighting the chalice. Our words today are from Charles Howell. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our ways, that new truth is ever waiting to break through to illumine our minds, and that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts. May we be open to this light and to the light and rich possibilities that it brings us. For those here for the first time, the lighting of our chalice is the beginning of the service aspect of our service. Religious would be a term that many churches would use. Spiritual is another, but it is a beginning. And today, for our beginning, I would like to introduce our sermon presenter. Our sermon presenter is Reverend Judy Zimmerman. We had the opportunity to see her, as some of you may remember, when she was on a Zoom broadcast one Sunday. She comes from outside of Portland. She is a UU minister who has recently served the Mid-Columbia UU Fellowship in Hood River, and she's been chairperson of the Gorge Ecumenical Ministries, an interfaith social and environmental justice organization. Judy continues to serve as president of the UU Buddhist Fellowship, a denominations-wide effort dedicated to supporting UUs inspired by Buddhism. She has 2 adult children, a furry feline family of 3, and lives in Parkdale, Oregon, at the base of Mount Hood. And we are real happy to have her, and she is now going to join with me, and we're going to share some opening words together with you.
Okay. We gather this morning on a mass of rock with a molten core, a planet made habitable by happenstance, with blessed waters floating on its crust, an oasis in the midst of an indifferent universe. This earth, the only home we've got.
A sun not too close nor too far away, a blanket of atmosphere that sustains us, not too thin, not too thick, not too hot, not too cold, just right, like Goldilocks in her bed. This earth, this only home we've got.
This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, these forests that give us their healing green, these flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, these fields that give us our daily bread, the wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it our home, the only home we've got.
The frolicking fish, the chirping bird, the regal lion, the shy field mouse, the buzzing bee, these are our kin. Family are we, linked in mystery and miracle to each other. We need one another on this earth, the only home we've got.
The rhythm of the earth lives in our beating hearts. We, who are strands in the web of life, vibrate with Earth's call. What is Earth saying? How will we respond? Let us gather in wonder and reverence and as kin in this holy hour.
Thank you, Judy. Judy's going to be back shortly. Not too long from now. But for now, she has a story that she wants to tell us. And I'm not even going to try to begin to introduce that. She's going to tell us about it, and then you're going to have an opportunity to watch the story. If you want to come a little closer, you sure can. And all the imaginary children who played hooky today can come down. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. A little something for our heart space here this morning. Okay, I'm ready, Jake. This is timed. The Lupin lady lives in a small house overlooking the sea. In between the rocks around her house grow blue and purple and rose-colored flowers. The Lupin lady is little and old. But she has not always been that way, I know. She is my great aunt, and she told me so. Once upon a time, she was a little girl named Alice who lived in a city by the sea. From the front stoop, she could see the wharves and the bristling masts of tall ships. Many years ago, her grandfather had come to America on a large sailing ship. Now he worked in the shop at the bottom of the house, making figureheads from the prows of ships, carving Indians out of wood to put in front of cigar stores. For Alice's grandfather was an artist. He painted pictures, too, of sailing ships and places across the sea. When he was very busy, Alice helped him by painting in the skies. In the evening, Alice sat on her grandfather's knee and listened to his stories of faraway places. When he had finished, Alice would say, "When I grow up, I too will go to faraway places, and when I grow old, I too will live by the sea." "That is all very well, little Alice," said her grandfather. "But there is a third thing you must do." "What is that?" asked Alice. "You must do something to make the world more beautiful," said her grandfather. "All right," said Alice. But she did not know what that would be. In the meantime, Alice got up and washed her face and ate porridge for breakfast. She went to school and came home and did her homework. And pretty soon, she was all grown up. Then my great-aunt Alice set out to do the 3 things she had told her grandfather she was going to do. She left home and went to live in another city far from the sea and salt air. There, she worked in a library, dusting books and keeping them from getting mixed up, and helping people find the ones they wanted. Some of the books told her about faraway places. People called her Miss Rumphius now. Sometimes she went to the conservatory in the middle of the park. When she stepped inside on a wintry day, the warm, moist air wrapped itself around her, and the sweet smell of jasmine filled her nose. "This is almost like a tropical isle," said Miss Rumphius. But not quite. So Miss Rumphius went to a real tropical island where people kept cockatoos and monkeys as pets. She walked on long beaches, picking up beautiful shells. One day she met Bapa Raja, king of a fishing village. "You must be tired," he said. "Come into my house and rest." So Miss Rumphius went in and met the Bapa Raja's wife. The Bapa Raja himself fetched a green coconut and cut a slice off the top so that Miss Rumphius could drink the coconut water inside. Before she left, the Bapa Raja gave her a beautiful mother-of-pearl shell on which he had painted a bird of paradise and the words, "You will always remain in my heart." "You will always remain in mine too," said Miss Rumphius. My great-aunt, Miss Alice Rumphius, climbed a tall mountain where the snow never melted. She went through jungles and across deserts. She saw lions playing and kangaroos jumping, and everywhere she made friends she would never forget. Finally, she came to the land of the lotus eaters, and there, getting off a camel, she hurt her back. "Oh, what a foolish thing to do," said Miss Rumphius. "Well, I have certainly seen faraway places. Maybe it is time to find my place by the sea." And it was. And she did. From the porch of her new house, Miss Rumphius watched the sun come up. She watched it cross the heavens and sparkle on the water. She saw it set in glory in the evening. She started a little garden among the rocks that surrounded her house, and she planted a few flower seeds in the stony ground. Miss Rumphius was almost perfectly happy. "But there is still one more thing I have to do," she said. "I have to do something to make the world more beautiful." "But what?" "The world is already pretty nice," she thought, looking out over the ocean. The next spring, Miss Rumphius was not very well. Her back was bothering her again, and she had to stay in bed most of the time. The flowers she had planted the summer before had come up and bloomed in spite of the stony ground. She could see them from her bedroom window, blue and purple and rose-colored. "Lupins," said Miss Rumphius with satisfaction. "I have always loved lupins the best. I wish I could plant more seeds this summer so that I could still have more flowers next year." But she was not able to. After a hard winter, spring finally came. Miss Rumphius was feeling much better. Now she could take walks again. And one afternoon, she started to go up and over the hill, where she had not been in a long time. "I don't believe my eyes," she cried when she got to the top. For there on the other side of the hill was a large patch of blue and purple and rose-colored lupins. "It was the wind," she said as she knelt in delight. "It was the wind that brought the seeds from my garden here. And the birds must have helped." Then Miss Rumphius had a wonderful idea. She hurried home and got out her seed catalogs. She sent off to the very best seed house for 5 bushels of lupin seed. All that summer, Miss Rumphius, her pockets full of seeds, wandered over fields and headlands, sowing lupins. She scattered the seeds along the highways and down the country lanes. She flung handfuls of them around the schoolhouse and the back of the church. She tossed them into hollows and along stone walls. Her back didn't hurt her any more at all. Now some people called her that crazy old lady. Next spring, there were lupins everywhere. Fields and hillsides were covered with blue and purple and rose-colored flowers. They bloomed along the highways and down the lanes. Bright patches lay around the schoolhouse and the back of the church. Down in the hollows and along the stone walls grew the beautiful flowers. Miss Rumphius had done the third most difficult thing of all. My great-aunt Alice, Miss Rumphius, is very old now. Her hair is very white. Every year, though, there are more and more lupins. Now they call her the Lupin Lady. Sometimes my friends stand with me outside her gate, curious to see the old lady who planted the fields of lupins. And when she invites us in, they come slowly. They think she is the oldest woman in the world. Often she tells stories of faraway places. "When I grow up," I tell her, "I too will go to faraway places and come home to live by the sea." "That is all very well, little Alice," says my aunt. "But there is a third thing you must do." "What is that?" I ask. "You must do something to make the world more beautiful." "All right," I say. All right. But I do not yet know what that can be. So, what will you do to make the world more beautiful? Think about that this morning while we're together. Think about that. All right. Thank you, Jake.
I love that story. It is at this time in our service when normally if we had some children, we would sing them downstairs. But before we do that, and there are no children, please join us in hymn number 203. The words of music will be up. Earth was given as a garden. 207, sorry.
Earth was given as a garden, cradle for humanity, tree of life and tree of knowledge, placed for our discovery. Here was home for all your creatures, born of land and sky and sea, all created in your image, all to live in harmony. Show to us again the garden where all peace. Fill us all with grace o'erflowing. Teach us how to live in peace.
Let's skip the singing the children downstairs song. I'd like to take this moment of beauty that we've just experienced to thank Connie for those gorgeous, wonderful flowers that appear. I think you're our own Lupin Lady. This is the time in our service when we have an opportunity to share things that are happening in our lives. We call it a circle of life. It's joys or concerns that are meaningful and you'd like to light a candle for someone or share one of those joys. If you have a joy or concern you'd like to share, if you'll line up along the front here, starting from that direction and coming across, I'll have some candles and a microphone. If you choose to light a silent candle, just bypass the microphone.
To
Thank you. It is at this time in our service that we pass baskets for the offertory that supports this congregation. We want you to know that your support fuels this community and our mission, and it keeps the flame of justice and community and its mission going. Your love burns brightly in all that we do, and what is given now is greatly appreciated, and our shared hopes and values are supported. So thank you. A couple people to pass these.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
Thank you so much. It is now that we get to bring back Judy. And shall we just play that video, or do you want to say something about it? Okay, this is a video that will just really prepare you for anything that Judy might bring. Will you start now, Ancient Mother?
Ancient
And for those who might image or feel internally a spirit of fertility or growth, do know that, at least within Unitarian Universalism, we're a faith that offers a variety of ways into that. So yes, this is more feminine imagery. There are also, as you'll see if you hang out in Unitarian Universalism for a while, a number of ways that the divine masculine can be imagined to help us connect with the spirit of fecundity, richness, and growth. And those can be explored, I hope, maybe with you folks in a future service. There's just wonderful riches out there. But for now, let's continue with another story. And this one is true. Although I wish Miss Rumphius were true, we can make it true in our own way. But this is a story told by a man, and he took this legal name. When people formally follow a Buddhist path, they'll do something that it's not exactly the same, but it makes you officially a Buddhist. It's not a baptism because the Buddhists don't do that, but you get a new name. And so this writer took the name of Bodhivata Dharmashanti as his legal name, not just a name to use when he would go to his faith community. So I'm going to share some things from a story he did for us, just to reflect upon. Now that we're hopefully in a peaceful space after hearing that wonderful harp music. So this story, Bodhivata Dharmashanti tells about when he visited Captiva Island. It's an island in Florida, and it sounds like it's something that he does regularly. He goes there often, but you have to go there by boat. And he took a picture one time back in 2012 after Hurricane Charlie came through that area. And early in the morning, as he would do, he would often take a walk around the island. And this particular morning, though, having just arrived, he was met with devastation of biblical proportions. I mean, Hurricane Charlie was quite an event. So he sat down in his duffel bag. He hadn't yet gotten to his cabin, and he sat down to meditate. And after a while, he opened his eyes, and while he was seated there, his attention was drawn to a palm tree in the midst of all the rubble on the seashore. He was absolutely mesmerized by this palm tree. And he writes about it in saying it's like he fell in love with the tree because that tree survived. So I share with you his own words now. I noticed she had a long and slender body like me, a head full of palm leaves resembling my wild hair. Ha! What she exhales, I inhale. And what I exhale, she inhales. I could not be alive without her pumping all of this oxygen towards me. We really are brother and sister, I thought. One would think that because she had such a slender, tall trunk, she would have easily snapped in the hurricane-force winds, but in fact, it was exactly her shape that allowed her not to snap. I visualized her in my mind in the middle of the storm, bending over to allow the wind to pass through. I then allowed my breath to become normal and made a little smile on my face while still looking at the palm tree. And at this point, I was the tree. I transported this image, he says, to a moment of difficulty in my life when I, too, was faced with a hurricane-force challenge. 2 years ago, I almost died of a ruptured brain aneurysm. I was in a coma for 8 weeks and in the hospital for 6 months. Bodhivata Dharmashanti says that on the day of his discharge, he noticed big white fluffy clouds in the sky in the east, and this shook him back to the wonderful experience shared with that palm tree. So, as we will hear in a couple of moments of silence, let's think about a moment of difficulty in our lives and the hurricane-force winds swirling around. And as you feel able, bring the image of that palm tree to mind. And I'll ring the bell again after our silence. So may this picture, this image of the palm tree be felt in us as we move forward in the future, in the event that we ever need it. We just might. It's there for us if we call upon it. Well, goodness sakes. Well, with this hot weather, we're going to still stick with not the warmth of the tropics, but the warmth of the kind here in our area in Oregon. I'm from the northern part of the state and glad to be with you in person instead of virtually as I was last time. And we now know that it's good and toasty and hot, so we're officially in summer, are we not? Yeah. I mean, I've been in Oregon now for, 30-ish years, you know. And when I first moved here, I originally from, and I can say it here, Southern California. And, summer all year round, you know. But they said, oh, yeah, summer doesn't begin in Oregon until after the 4th of July. And maybe in Southern Oregon a little bit earlier, but certainly in the part, that I live in. That's definitely what we say. And on the 4th of July, wouldn't you know it, on my Facebook feed, I got a post from the former director of religious education at my home church where I raised my children. And it's a church, a fun one, and it was in that post, Sarah, our former director of religious education, she's also now retired, she organized a family camp that met in Vernonia, Oregon. It's a camp that's different in flavor than the one your Reverend Dennis is at right now. That's up in northern Washington, and this is just really low key. It's out in the middle of the woods. It's very rustic, very, very rustic. But in that post from Sarah, she wished us all a happy Interdependence Day, and she's been that way ever since. And that was the first time I had heard someone refer to the 4th of July as Interdependence Day. Yes, indeed. And, I found that really refreshing. A nice switch from the, arrogant nationalism that sometimes pops up around the 4th of July. And like Sarah, since then I've made a conscious effort to refer to the 4th of July as Interdependence Day. But also, to allow myself to, like most Americans, many Americans, just to indulge in a little bit of nostalgia. And the thing about nostalgia is that it reminds us about what is important to us. We feel nostalgic about things that we value. And one of the things I certainly value are connections with spiritual friends, but also my connection with this earth. So when my heart is heavy, as it has been, especially given the events of the last few weeks, when it's heavy with all that the climate crisis means, I do feel that nostalgia for the times before we became aware of climate change. Those days where we had the bliss of ignorance. And from time to time, yes, and certainly for the first time, we're aware now that human activities like fossil fuel consumption and deforestation, that they leave unmistakable imprints on the Earth's geological record. Scientists met earlier this week to talk about a new study of samples that come from the sediment of Crawford Lake in Ontario, Canada. And these samples go back 1,000 years, and they show a pattern of human-caused disruption that began sharply in the mid-20th century. And this is corroborated by samples from Antarctic ice, from coral reefs, and from peat bogs. So the scientists are largely in agreement, but not exclusively so, but largely so, that we have shifted now from what's called the Holocene epoch of the last 12,000 years and relative climate stability to the Anthropocene, the age of humans and marked, abrupt climate change. So the Earth is hotter than it ever has been for thousands of years. The last decade was warmer than any period. And this is all hot new stuff off the scientific press. The Earth is hot, and it's hotter than it has been in the last 125,000 years. And last week it was reported that the Earth's average surface temperature was yielding that figure. So the next day, though, we didn't just have one 125,000-year record. We had another and another. 3 in 1 week. And we know that for the second week, much of the south of the country and the southwest are in this massive heat wave. And we know that global heating has been named as a factor in making for the torrential rains that have flooded Vermont and the Northeast. Those warmer temperatures allow storms to hold much, much more moisture than they otherwise would and bring the rains that cause the flooding. So if you're uncomfortable at all, as I am, around the issue of climate change, it makes some sense. Our world, it's in trouble. Though it's unpleasant, feeling pain and distress is actually a good thing. It means you're not numb. Pain is a warning, a prompt to take corrective action. We spring into action and grab the hand of a child who's going into the path of an oncoming car. We grab the lid and throw it onto the skillet that's billowing smoke on the stove. Our species is primed to respond. Discomfort is a necessary and natural part of our collective healing, says Joanna Macy. Might pain remind us that we are like cells in a larger body, the body of the earth, that we might be feeling pain on behalf of our planet? I worry about deadening of responses around climate change. I worry about that numbness. Numbness constrains the moral and spiritual imagination that guide us. We might want to do something, yet we feel overwhelmed, helpless, afraid. So we do nothing. I wonder how we might ride these rough waters and tap into reservoirs of resilience for what lies ahead. I had a coworker and friend who grew up in Jerusalem in a neighborhood occupied by Palestinians. The Palestinians were living there, and it was Israeli occupation. She told the story of how her mother would heat her bath in the water on the stove. Now, unlike my family with its Saturday night bath ritual for us kids, Marlene never knew when it would be bath time because the water to her family's apartment would be shut off willy-nilly. So when there was water, her mother would summon her, and Marlene would drop whatever she was doing. She spoke with glee about going away to college in France and being able to open a faucet and have water come out every time. So when I'm feeling grumpy or sad, I think of Marlene and how fortunate I am to have water, and hot water on demand, no less. I'm grateful. The dark clouds in my mind part just enough to let some sunshine in. So when times are tough, it's easy to lose sight of everyday blessings, focusing on even small things, like having ice cubes for your drink on a hot day, like the one we're having today, having clean air to breathe, or seeing a little sunny and hardy dandelion poking up through a crack in the sidewalk. Noticing those things can bring dividends. Social science research consistently finds that practicing gratitude improves well-being and builds resilience. Gratitude works like a muscle. We can train this muscle and make it stronger. So for Marlene, home was Jerusalem, then it was Paris, then the United States, and within America, multiple states, multiple cities, multiple houses. And like Marlene, I've lived in more than one place. How many of us here have lived in Roseburg our entire life? I'm not surprised. I know our folks watching us up there on YouTube, you can answer that question. We know that since 1950, 15 to 20% of the U.S. population moves in a given year. Though since the pandemic, that figure's gone down. I wonder how these multiple moves affect our connection with the earth. Do they foster independence because we've uprooted ourselves so many times? Is yearning for more durable bonds strengthened? I wonder if a key piece of coping with climate change is our felt connection to the earth. When I was a college teacher, before I was a minister, I'd ask students to answer this question: who am I? And I said they had up to 20 answers and to put their answer as a word or a little phrase. And you know what? I don't recall a single person in all my years of teaching, and I taught for over 25 years, I don't recall anyone ever saying, I am a resident of fill in the blank. You know, for me, it would be Pine Grove or Odell for you folks, you know, Glide, Roseburg, whatever. But think about it. What if you said, I'm a resident of the Umpqua River watershed? So where we live is important, but seldom central to how we think we are. We might be born in a place, but live in a place. You know, we're physically present in a place, but we're not really here at deeper levels. What is the smell of the area around our home? What is its soundscape? Do we know the stories of the trees, the rocks, the soil, the streams, the flowers, the animals where we live? Do we even know their names? We might say we love nature, yet can we love something we cannot name or even perceive? We're steps removed from intimacy with the region of the earth that sustains us. This disconnect is part of what encouraged colonial settlers to view the natural world as something to subdue and control. They were aided by narrow interpretations of the Old Testament that spoke of how humanity had, and this is from Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, and this is what Genesis says. Humans have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So, Some folks took that to mean that nature should be a commodity, and we came to view it that way. Nature was animals with fur to trap, minerals to mine, trees to harvest for timber. We human beings began to think we could transcend nature, that we were above it, somehow immune from its consequences. These trends began many years ago and remain with us today. It's seen in preference for technological fixes to the climate crisis and in short-sightedness and willful ignorance of the profound effects of global warming. The very way we talk about climate change encourages disconnection between humans and nature. We talk about the environment, but that's vague and nonspecific. It's over there, somewhere far away, not in our own town, backyard or apartment complex. Poet Gary Snyder says that our relationship to the natural world should be grounded in actual experience. When something is vague, over there, far away, it's difficult to forge the kind of relationship Snyder speaks of. He's in step with our transcendentalist Unitarian ancestors. They took issue with spirituality handed down third party from doctrine and from church leaders. Transcendentalists believed that the divine was manifest in each person's direct experience. The first source of the faith that is our living tradition says it, and you have it right over here on the wall. Direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces that create and uphold life. That direct experience is found in relationship with the land of our home, the place we inhabit every day. At our denomination's recent General Assembly held in Pittsburgh last month, delegates voted on a draft revision to our UU principles and purposes, affirming core values among Unitarian Universalists. In a beautiful graphic that conveys these shared values, love is placed in the center. And one of the peak experiences of human life is falling in love. When we're in love and we gaze into the eyes of our beloved, time seems like it's standing still. There's a sense of togetherness as boundaries between people soften. Things feel less onerous. So much seems possible. So, if we can fall in love with other humans, why not the earth? Why not the earth? And our specific local place in it. So what is this love? A chant from the Diné people of the Navajo Nation offers this. The mountain, I become part of it. The herbs, the fir tree, I become part of it. The morning mist, the clouds, the gathering waters, I become part of it. The wilderness, the dewdrops, the pollen, I become part of it. This is a love marked by interconnection. Nature isn't outside of us. Nature out there and nature in here. They're one and the same. We live under the illusion that we're somehow separate from the natural world. We humans are the natural world. We are the earth. We are inseparable from it. Now, interconnectedness doesn't mean we lose our individuality. Each of us is a unique strand in the web of life. Each of us is made of DNA that will never, ever again be duplicated. And ecologists tell us that biodiversity is a basic principle of vibrant ecological systems. Diversity is wonderful. So, we begin to nourish this enlarged identity by noticing details of the places we inhabit, the trees, the bushes, the grasses around our home, the birds outside the window, the smell of air at different times of day, the insect life in a flower bed. For example, in the book Walking, Unitarian Henry David Thoreau said that an area 20 miles in diameter would be enough to occupy a lifetime of close exploration. So our immediate surroundings can become magical with this spirit of exploration. This is a journey of self-discovery. These are parts of who we are. So if we love the earth as we love ourselves, what does this require of us? The draft revision of our UU principles and purposes offers guidance. Again, that beautiful graphic with love at the center affirms the value of interdependence. Love is surrounded by these 6 values, interdependence being one. The draft text says, and it's basically a restatement of our 7th principle, it says, we honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. So we can save Earth, then, by loving a place, the places near home that are dear, like a mama bear protecting her cubs. We can become an advocate. In the Time for All Ages story, Miss Rumphius brought love, care, and advocacy to her corner of the world, to her place. You don't have to be Julia Butterfly Hill. Some of us might remember her. She lived atop a 1,000-year-old redwood tree. She called that tree Luna. She gave it a name. And she lived in there for almost 2 years to stop that tree and that tree's other family members from being cut. So when facing a problem as vast in scope as the climate crisis, it might seem we need to act historically on a large scale because we think our individual actions just don't matter. And I disagree. The flight of a flock of birds in formation depends on each bird. Our actions to save the earth are like that. So, the willingness to act, to fly in formation, begins in love. So let us go forth, and I know we'll sing a song about this at the end of the service, but let us go forth and bring love to the earth, to our place, and to the world. Amen. And blessed, blessed be.
We have a little time now for conversation, response. Anyone like to talk with Judy? Give it a minute or two.
There's a little gem in, there's many little gems in the hymn, but one of them is number 457. I looked it up last night.
That's our gray hymnal.
And yes, and what it's by Edward Everett Hale,
Oh, yeah.
and he says, if I can find it now, I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I can't do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. And I just think that's such a a wonderful little piece in there that I don't look at often enough. And there's always, it gets overwhelming. There's so much to do that sometimes it's just enough to start with that little something. There's a book called, one of my favorites, I talk about it a lot, called The Soil Will Save Us. And it's written by a Portland author called Kristen Olson. And it's old now. I mean, it's, 2014.
Yeah.
But there's so much we even do to our yards. I don't, but some people throw Roundup on everything, but if we can start there, and that's one avenue. But there's all sorts of things we can do, and part of it is thinking through, what is it? What's the something that I can do?
I'm glad you noticed the wisdom in our gray hymnal. Yeah, there's lots there. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. I just wanted to put in a word for the people who I know to be the conservators and the strongest environmentalists of the land that I've ever had experience with, and I speak of the people who are farmers.
Yeah.
I know a lot of them. I used to raise beef cattle,
Yeah.
and the people I knew took better care of the land and knew more about it than I ever thought of knowing. And it was also taught to me by my parents and by other people in the community. You could tell the character of a man by the way he kept his animals. And I have to say that in the community I grew up in, the Catholics did a far finer job of taking care of their beasts than the church that my family belonged to.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to put a word in for the farmers and the ranchers that live on the land. They're the soldiers on the front line on this.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Because those of us that consume, meat of various kinds forget that those who raise the cattle are deeply close to other creatures and to earth and to its cycles because they have animals to care for. Yeah.
I think that's it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're so privileged to be able to have sermon leaders from different places come to us and bring their experiences that are similar but different. And so I'm grateful. Thank you, Judy Zimmerman, for joining with us. We have a hymn now, hymn number 317, and it is on video. Can you start that for us, Jake?
We are not our own.
As we extinguish or delight the chalice, I've chosen some words by George Brooks entitled, "May the love that gives to life, may the love that gives to life be its beauty. May the love that gives to life its beauty, the reverence that gives its life its sacredness, and the purpose that gives to life its deep significance be strong within each of us and lead us into ever deepening relationships with all life." Amen. Again, please join us for coffee or tea, whatever's back there. The pictures of Pride are on the table. Feel free to look, not take. If there is something you really want, put initials on the back. And thank you for coming, and Judy, thank you for staying. And we'll part with Go Lift It Up.